This program brought to you by cdance.com.
Rodney Gustafson founded State Street Ballet in 1994. As artistic director, he has created several full-length ballets. Dance Channel TV had a chance to learn more about his vision during his production of Romeo and Juliet.
Well, my background was mainly with American Ballet Theater in New York, so I was heavily influenced by that company and its history. And I actually came to Santa Barbara because I felt the community had the right ingredients to be able to begin a company of the size that I have now, which is about 18 dancers. This is one of the reasons I'm so committed to arts outreach. My mother was from Sweden. She grew up in a farm. She was not an educated woman. They pulled her out of school in 7th grade to milk the cows and gather vegetables, and she lived through the Depression in a farm outside of Chicago when her family brought her from Stockholm. And so as a child growing up, I played a clarinet from age 3. I got in gymnastics in junior high, and I was in the theater in the high school. And I was a freshman in high school, and I was on the gymnastics team. I was too small to play football, which I always wanted to play. And a lady who needed a partner for her ballet recital came to my high school, and a guy who used to be the state champion gymnast, who is now in American Ballet Theater. They were touring and they were performing at the university. And he told the guys, like, it's really good to take ballet. And of course, all the guys laughed on the gymnastics team. But this lady came back a few weeks later and she said, I want you to come do a performance with me of the Joffrey Ballet at the university. And she convinced me to do so, and I went to see one performance, and I was absolutely hooked. It was nothing like I thought. It was my very single exposure to the art of ballet. The next day I was at her ballet studio, and I started taking ballet 5 days a week. Within the year, I was on a full scholarship at San Francisco Ballet. And we find statistically that very young audiences are extremely receptive, and they're like K through 7 or K through 6 school. And but I say for anybody, any age, you know, from 5 to 90, just try it once. And that's what we do as a company. We give a lot of tickets to the public in different ways and try to get them exposed to the art form, because it's like anything with knowledge. You know, with the knowledge of the art form, then you start to get the appreciation. It's like if I've never seen something, I have no basis for judgment on it. And we find one of the greatest comments that I get is after a show, especially from the men. They will come to me, like these might be men, the parents of kids in our ballet school, and they'll say, you know, I never thought I would like ballet, and you made it so entertaining, and I really thought it was wonderful. And I've had that more from the men. It's just amazing. So I think there's nothing like an exposure. You can talk about it till you're blue in the face, but you've got to drag somebody in the door to get to see it. And the other good way that we do it is we introduce them through open rehearsal. There's something about being very close to a dancer that's sweating and jumping and flying through the air and partnering with a woman that's very exciting. There's the energy there is irresistible, and it really brings people in. It's interesting, when I began, I wanted to do only very esoteric, wonderful, beautiful short ballets on the very artsy kind of end of things. And I realized as I went that art is a reflection of our society, so we have to think in terms of what does our society want from art. And so it's not all self-centered. As an artist, I have to realize that art is what people are allowed to experience, and we have to consider our audience. So as we've moved down the road, I've come to terms with that, and I realize that we need to have a broad spectrum of dance that allows many different types of audiences to enjoy it, appreciate it. And therefore we do many classical ballets now, which we originate. We don't usually do other people's versions of the classics like Romeo and Juliet. We do our own choreography, and we do esoteric evenings like we do here, very contemporary things where the dancers get to choreograph. We do lots of arts in education, and we do lots of touring, and so we have many different facets. And then we have, this year we started some actual family programming for the age group, the demographic of sort of 20 to 50 parents of kids, and to experience, you know, to expose children to dance. So I've just learned with time and experience, you know, over the last 15 years that we We have a wide group of people that we want dance to live on. We don't want dance to die like many people think ballet is dead. Well, it's been around a few hundred years. I'm not so sure it's dead. Well, I found through the 15 years of my experience with the company, I've really found my niches working with the stories. And I've done several of them. Jungle Book was my other most recent one, Midsummer Night's Dream, Cinderella, NutCrackers. And I think that the difference is when you do a full length, you tell a story, and your story depends on the people that are playing the parts, the roles in the story, and who your characters are. And every time that I've redone a classic, like I've redone my Cinderella a couple times now, and we've toured it a lot, I find that I change who I am and the way that I do the story. This time I feel the characters that I have and the complement of dancers in the company and the characters are much deeper, and I think more, I find that the story is just much more brought out. And Shakespeare is somewhat inaccessible, especially in the theatrical form, because the language is so difficult, and that's what I find the dance of Romeo and Juliet really does tell the story, and it tells about that unrequited love and that unbelievable sense of passion, and then there's agony, and there's, betrayal, and it hits all the points. When I go see a movie, I want to laugh, I want to cry, I want to feel good. And unfortunately, it has a very kind of dark ending, but nevertheless, it's still, the beauty of the story lives on. So I think that it just evolves, and I think that it has evolved to a higher level and a more sophisticated as far as the choreography. I always rework things as I go, depending on the artists that are involved. And the artists dictate the art. And when I formed the company, I always put the money into the artists first, not into the costumes and sets. If you don't have beautiful dancers, that's the essence, that's what creates the art. And I let the dancers talk to me a lot and let them interpret the roles. I let them have the freedom to be the beautiful artists they are. You don't want to cage that. And so I almost feel like I'm just the coach in a way. I get it to a certain point, and then the dancers just take it. And that's the real beauty. That's the point where you feel kind of fully realized. And I think this time I really feel that sense much more strongly. I just am so pleased that we've been able to create this company here in Santa Barbara. It's a beautiful base for a company, and that we do have a New York agent now, Jody Kaplan Associates, and we've toured the East Coast, we've toured the Midwest, we've toured throughout the Southwest, we've toured China and Taiwan, and we're really doing a lot of touring now with the company and acting as a cultural ambassador for our community. We do a lot in the LA area, which I love, and I'd love to get into that area more strongly, and up in the Bay Area as well. So I'm just very pleased to be able to continue to perpetuate the art of dance. I think it's very relevant in today's society. And I know that there was an article by Clive Barnes and Louis Siegel in the LA Times competing critics about, is dance dead? Well, I've watched dance audiences for the past couple years. I'm really observant of statistics, and I see dance audiences have remained quite strong. And so I think it remains a relevant art form, and I think it will into the future. Arts has allowed me a venue in which I can express beauty and look for the good things in life and look for sort of a meaning, because the arts give us something inside. They make us find out who we are so we can blossom as people and do our jobs, whatever they may be, in a better way. It's just a frame of thinking that's more about, it's how we feel inside about us than the car that I drive. And growing up in a very humble beginning made me realize the beauty is inside, and whatever I can do to nurture that beauty is really the absolute best thing. So maybe I would try to change this or that, or grow up in a bigger house, I don't know. But I've always felt on a daily basis that I'm so grateful for being allowed to see life through that lens. And that's why I think the arts are still so relevant in our society, and we discount them, and we have football and all the big stadiums and the things that are very, very popular in this country, but the arts give us a framework for living.